.NET chart controls, so you don't need third-party controls. They're all built in .NET. We have aggregate controls, allow you to summarize your information, sums, averages, counts, and they use the standard data source in Iron Speed Designer for sums, charts, and counts. Queries are automatically generated, so you don't have to use SQL or ASPX or any other code behind. You use in Iron Speed Designer, this is just a refresher for those of you, since it's an advanced course talking strictly about focusing on dashboards, but we're going to give you a little refresher course about how you edit things in Iron Speed Designer. You use the layout editor. It has a grid view or a spreadsheet view of the various parts of your page. In that, you can rearrange controls, you can drop new controls, and that's what the layouts and dashboards are. And so you'll use the layout editor starting usually with a blank page or a blank page with menus, and then adding in the controls you want. You can, of course, use the HTML editor in the layout editor to edit the contents of your cells. And with the layout editor is the toolbox. Here's the parts of the toolbox that we'll be focusing on today. There are the reports and forms where you get the data back panels that you might want for your application. And then you get the fields, labels, sums, and counts section where you'll find a little lower that it's not shown here. I should have made that differently. But you'll get the fields, sums, and counts that you can drop into your report. And you'll also get the chart controls in their own section. The aggregate controls, sums, counts, are all pre-configured. They include all numerical fields except for your keys. We don't sum your or average your keys. Doesn't make much sense. So you don't need to know SQL to use these, and they're very easy to modify. Charts the same way. In the chart section of the toolbox, you drop in the charts, and you'll see this because important part of this webinar is the demonstrations for how you actually do this. Once you get the controls, you configure them with properties. Here's an example of what we'll be seeing in just a little while, where we have an applications count chart. The chart is configured with titles. It's configured with data sources, all from the properties panel. The common usage of these controls is to add, and dashboards and reporting is to add sums, counts, averages, totals to the application, change the formulas in the property sheets, create dashboards by dropping in charts on standalone pages, and create dashboards by dropping counts and sums. Here's what you'll see in our sample application. We have two sample applications on our database, or sorry, on our website. And so we're going to start with one of these. This is the Acme Analytics page. A dashboard allows you to see summaries of statistics and to drill down into them. And the same thing for our job application sample database. Again, if you want to get these databases or these applications, just go to our website, the sample applications page, and download them from there. The application we'll be using today is the job application, and here's the schema of the database that we'll be working with. It contains an application system for a small enterprise. It keeps track of the applications and their education and employment history. The applications are for job openings and positions in the various departments. Along with that is role-based security files for the users or for the applicants, which gives them role-based security. One of the questions I always have is, what do you mean by report or dashboard? And so I tried to summarize it here. It's a nebulous subject. It doesn't have an absolutely precise definition, but generally a report tries to present a summary of information, some summaries, and organized information for your application. The dashboard is an enhancement of the report, of any kind of report, which allows you dynamic control and dynamic links to other parts of the related information that's shown in the report. And for our tools and for our reports and dashboards, as I said earlier at the very beginning, we provide both sums and counts, the aggregate fields, and charts that you can use to create the reports and dashboards. The aggregate fields gives us sums, counts, averages, minimum, maximum. They allow you to drill down to the source. And with the property sheet, you can add formatting and do many other things without any other coding involved. Here's an example of the report that we're going to construct right now of the department information. We'll get for each department, we'll find, well, it's a little faint here, we'll find the number of job openings and the applications which they have for those job openings. To do that, we'll create our page with our job, with our department, and then drop in the aggregate controls and configure the aggregate controls so that you can link to other parts of the application. And when you do that, if you're going to link to other parts of the application, you must have a target page, and so we'll make sure that we have the target page, and that the target page accepts the argument from the linking so that we focus on the element that we're looking for. And we'll have to be sure that we consider URL encryption, because if you're going to pass arguments in URLs, it's very important that you not encrypt them and then look for them unencrypted or vice versa. So let's go ahead and start our Iron Speed Designer, which has already started here since I was looking at it earlier. And we'll get our application. As you can see, I've been working with this application, so hopefully we won't have any surprises today. This is starting right now the sample application, job application, which you can download, as I said, from our website. For that, we have, well, let's just take a look at it since we'll run it here. To give you a little refresher, of course, to show you what we'll be working on. In the application, we have a section in the menu called Analytics. Analytics just points at the page with the combined charts that give us the dashboard that's already built into this application. We're going to show you how that's built in a little while. So, application starting, and come on up any time now, and we'll see how it's going. Here's our applications. We'll go to the Analytics section and see in the Analytics menu we have already a dashboard prepared where you can see the statistics and then drill down into the information. But we'll add to this here a reporting section. So let's add our report, a new blank page. Now, if this were a report that I were adding just to be sent from somewhere else, just to be sent an email, I would make it without menus, but I'm going to create a menu page since I want to use it here in the application also. We'll rename this page to be Department Report. Whoops. Wish I could type. And in the department report, well, of course, which is just blank at the present time, we'll go over to our toolbox, go to our fields or reports and forms. We need a panel in here, so we're going to put in a panel of a report for unrelated tables. Every table is unrelated, so this doesn't have any table as its basis yet. And so we're going to put in a report for the departments. We're going to use a simple email report. This doesn't give us many links, gives us data that can be emailed, but it will give us what we want, which is basically an empty shell into which to put our report. We can leave the panel heading and the field labels, everything else is turned off, and we don't need to, certainly don't want the department image. The department photo would be good. The department photo and department name will be part of our report. And we go through and finish. And so now in our department, we have the fields which show our photo and our name. Let's put our name up above the photo. You can edit that to take the break tag from the lower line, put it up here so that they appear one over the other. This name I'm going to change. I'm going to put over here from the toolbox, from my fields, labels, sums, and counts. I'm going to go looking for a count because I want to count. First, I want to count the job openings for this department. So let's just drop in that. And we're going to do it for each ID since we're in a table control. And that's pretty much it. Once we do that, we want the label here, which is currently not configured, not showing just the name, instead to show the job opening. So let's call this job openings label. And of course, if it's the job openings label, we'd like it to say that, so we'll go to its appearance and find where its text is and change that to job openings 2. And so now we've got our job openings, but we also want, let me get some more room here. I would like to have a count of applications. So we'll put it in here, and we'll leave room for the label in the other cell. Applications for each ID. And now what easiest way to get another label is just copy this one and paste it in and change it to applications label. And when we do that, let's get this word here and change its text to be applications. And so now we have, let's see what it looks like actually. We'll run this. One thing I haven't done, and we'll have to fix that. We'll let it build this page, run it before I actually look at it. I'm going to need a way to look at it, so the easiest thing to do is to go to my menu. Let's configure my menu and add into the analytics section here. We'll add a new menu item, which at this point is not there. I want it underneath my analytics. So I'm going to call it here department report. And if I call it that, I might as well let its description be that. And where do I want it to point? I want it to point in my analytics to my department report, of course. So now that we've got a menu item in our application, we can, let's just quickly rebuild that and go to our application, which is now running. finished. Better refresh it because I need the new code containing the menu, otherwise I won't have my menu. And in my analytics, I now have a department report that I can go look at, and it shows me my departments and their job openings and their applications. Now, these are just summary statistics. There's no link here, which is fine. If it's a report, that's all I need to do. I can send this out. Of course, I can put lots more information on it, but you get the idea. I can send this out to people in email or print it, and it'll be fine. But I want to put a link in it so I can change this report into a dashboard. A poor man's dashboard, but nonetheless a dashboard. We'll put a link here that will allow us to actually link to our job openings. Well, to do that, remember, if you'll remember our slides, we'll go back and reports. There's the report we created, but we're going to change the report here by adding HTML that performs a link, and here's actually the HTML we're going to add. Whoops, let's see. Okay, I know how to do this. We got to go to look at a different view. If we look at a different view of the application, here it is. Come on down here. So now I can copy my formula. And when I copy the formula, I can go back to my application. Where is my department report? My control here. And here we have how it's being initialized with the lookup control. We want a little more than a lookup control. We're going to embed that in some HTML, which creates a link. And that here you can look and see that we got the same foundation job openings count query control here, but we're embedding that in the href, which will allow us to go to the department ID equals the department ID of this particular record. So we'll get that. And there's one other thing that we mentioned. If you caught the slides as we went through, we added the formula, and then, well, here we go, and then we have to add the table that we're going to, because it's going to a table of job openings. I don't want to go to the group by job openings. I want to create my own table, so let's page, here we go. We look at the tools, we add the application wizard. We're going to add a page to the job openings. And all we need is one simple web page. Just go to pages, go to job openings. This is the only page we're going to add is a basic table page, and finish the application. Here we get our job openings table page, so that we'll have a landing page for the link from our report. And yes, it's building it and running it again. So now we have, how many pages we have? 2 pages. We have a page here, updated, a page here, obsolete, and here's the new page. One other thing we haven't done, let's go back to our page here. I saw out of the corner of my eye that we were working on the where is my master page? Our page title was, at this point, blank page, so we'll go to our master page and change the page title to Department Report. And now with our, still one other thing, if you remembered the slides, we of course made our landing table, and then let's see, have to worry about URL encryption, because at present the URLs in our application are being encrypted. Let me, I think the easiest way to show you that is just to find a link here. Go to my analytics, my department report, and let's click on the report, and I get nothing. All right, well, I got nothing, meaning it shows the department ID is 1, but I got way more than department ID is 1, and I'll show you why I did that. So let's go back to the department report. In my, here we go, my application, in the job openings count in the query. Well, didn't add the, here's the landing page I was landing on, the job openings, show job openings table. In the job openings table, we also have to allow for interpreting our argument, which we hadn't allowed. So we'll need to add a where clause to our argument, which says that we're getting our job openings table, and the job openings department ID is going to be equal to a URL, which is in the environment section of the formulas. There we go. In the URL for department ID. So let's add just that here. So we'll look for a URL of department ID and then use that URL. Now here, one thing we didn't do, ignore it when there is no return for, or no value for the URL. We don't want it to ignore it. We want it to have nothing. So if you don't match the URL, you don't get to see anything. And that's okay. We go on next. For fun, let's just sort it by something obvious, by the job openings position, and it's ready to go. So now the data source for the job openings table will take the URL from our page. One other thing we haven't allowed for is in our tools, in our configuration of our application, the default for application configuration for security is to encrypt URLs. But if I encrypt URLs, then I have to add that to then I have to add URL encryption to my parameters. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to turn off URL encryption so we can all see how the URL is being used. So now with URL encryption turned off, our page should be able to work. And so after it gets rebuilt, we'll go to the page where, come back here, have you finished yet? Not yet. Still working on it. This is going to rebuild the page, of course, with the changes we've made. And then once it's finished, we'll go to the page. We'll refresh it to get the code from it. And then we'll try our link. And this time, we got the job opening we're looking for. And so there you go. That's the essence of reporting and creating a dashboard from it. We'll go now to look at, well, let's see what we've looked at. Next thing, I see we have a couple of questions starting to come in. Remember, we'll handle questions as soon as we finish this last part of the demonstration, which is now doing the charts. With the charts, I don't have to make it up from scratch, but I will. I'll make up from scratch one of the charts that's already on the analytics page. And it'll look, this chart here is on the analytics page, And so it's job openings by department. We'll take a look at it and then create it for ourselves. We'll drop the chart onto our dashboard page along with the one that's there so we can compare what's happening. And then we'll configure it and go ahead and do it. Let's go to our page. Now, here we go. We've got the departments page. What we're going to work on now is the analytics page. This is the same page we're looking at here. You notice there's 3 charts, which are the, where is my, oh, I didn't show the whole page here. That's okay. This is the bottom chart. This one we're going to add, so we'll go ahead and do it again just to show you how it's done. Now, to drop a chart in and to see the chart properties we're going to need, we're going to have to put it inside a panel. This level of the page, this is just the bare page. There are no data panels here, and so we're going to have to add a data panel in order to get the properties we want. So to add a data panel, I'll just take an unrelated report for the job openings. Give it a simple emailable printable report. No headings or any other things since we don't need them. And we don't also want these fields. Date, expiration date. We'll leave the department ID and job position there. And nothing else to configure. Now we have basically a data panel for the job openings table. Let's go inside of that. Go to its fields. I don't want any of its fields, so we'll just take them out. And right next to the field section, which is now empty and so therefore won't show anything, we'll drop in a chart control, which is what we have to find first in the charts. We're going to do a count of job openings by department. We're going to use a pie chart. Here in the job openings by department, we're doing the count. We're doing the job openings by departments, and we're going to use the name of the department, not just the ID, so that we can see the count and the names of the departments. And we're going to look at colored palette is fine. And instead of looking at just the top 5, which is what we usually default to, we'll look at all of them. But before we click, if we click all, then all of a sudden we're stuck with the others, which doesn't mean anything. So we'll go back to top 5, uncheck the remainder, and then check the all. And I like to see largest first, not smallest first, and finish our chart. Now, with our chart, we're going to have one other problem. Well, here you see the properties I was looking for. Let's see if I can make these a little bigger so we can see that when you want to redirect, there's a formula for redirecting. Let's open that up. Here's the it says we'll go to the job openings, show job openings table, the same one we were going to for our other report. And the argument will be the name, and we know that's not right. Very good. Okay. Somebody asked. Feel free to do that if I go too fast for you. Let me finish the URL here. We're going to make the URL the department. If I could spell, I'd be dangerous. Department ID, because that's what we're looking for where we're going. And it's going to be ID 0, which is the name of the field in the data source that we'll be using. The ID of the department. Let's do that. And so the question was, in our job openings, easiest way to demonstrate this, and this is a tricky part, in the chart, we dropped in a chart. I'll drop in another one, then we'll delete it. We're going to drop in a chart for the job openings. We choose the pie chart, and then we get, in the pie chart, we select what we want. We're going to look at the job openings for the departments, and the departments, we're going to use the name. That's all we needed here. You could select some or average, but we'll use this. Now here in the options, this was the tricky part, because always the default is the top 5, and with the top 5, the remainder is checked by default. That gives you an entry for others, a part of the chart. But we want to use all records. Well, when you have all records, you don't need to have any others, because there aren't any others. So we could take that off, but the others was still shown in the legend because it's checked down here. This is sort of, we should have changed it so that it actually removed it, but it wasn't done. So, well, all we have to do is go down, select the top 5 again, manually remove the check mark from the remainder. Then we're free to check all entries, and we won't have our remainder. And that was pretty much what happened. So, and let's, now we have one other thing, or I think we're going to have a problem here. One of the things we have to check is in our chart. Let me go down to the job openings count query. We're using the ID for the argument, the department ID. So look at the query we're using, job openings ID from departments. So let's look at this. We go, it's selecting from departments, and the fields selected are the department name and the count. Well, we need those, but we also need the department ID. So we're going to move the department ID over into the selected fields so that the department ID will be available to use for the argument. All we have to do is finish that. And now let's, I don't think I've neglected anything else. Why don't we go find out? I'll go ahead and just build a new set of pages. I get to kill all the old ones that are now obsolete. This is the one we're building, so this was the obsolete ones. And we have our analytics. Let's just go to the analytics page. Now our analytics page should show us that and the one we've just constructed. Here is the one we've constructed. Here's the one we had. We notice it's got a tooltip that's been, these are tooltips. You notice the fonts are a little better here. And that's are all things I'll show you how to adjust. But right now we're going to do the link which we've made. It goes to the department, each one of the departments. So let's see, this the blue part, that's the tax collector, and that's Department 3. So let's see if we should go and look at the job openings for the tax collector. And so there we have our chart. It's been prepared except for the properties. I'll leave that as an exercise to you. I'll show you one more thing here. This is the charts. Here's our application. Our application now, let's see, we've got our chart, but the chart is in this panel we added, and we did that, remember, as I told you, so that we could see the properties. These actions here are all the properties that are available for showing, and if we want a remainder label, etc., we don't, of course, we aren't using remainder here, but legends, you can configure fonts, and all those things in the configuration and properties for the chart. You can play with those. The one thing I want to look at, instead of having the chart down here, now that we've got it, if it's configured correctly, we can take it out of the panel, and we'll just copy that with a Control-C, go back up to our analytics, and put it down here. So I missed it. I didn't copy it right, so let's go back down to the chart again. I will get this right. All right, we take the chart, we're going to copy it. We're going to go up to our analytics, and we're going to paste it. So now we've got a copy of that chart. So let's take out the panel. Instead of taking it out, you'll see in the chart that we put up here, all of a sudden the properties disappeared, and that's why I put it inside the panel so I could get those properties. I don't need the properties now if I'm not going to configure it, so that's just fine. It will still work. But let's just take this one out of the way. All we have to do that is configure the row style of the cell that it's in. Let's go change the row style and add a inline style for display : none. If I do that, this row shouldn't display, in which case I can now, as soon as my page rebuilds, go back to the application here. Let's go look at the analytics. And the analytics will show us the page, and this is the page actually at the page level, not embedded in the data panel. And it's still the same. It shows all the links that we need, and when you adjust the fonts and things, you'll get this looking right, in which case we've just recreated this. So now that's pretty much what I wanted to show you today. So let's talk about your questions and see what other things you want to look at. For queries, is it possible to use business access object as data source instead of writing inline queries? The queries are constructed by Designer and part of the data access layer, and so no, you can't use other objects. We don't have any link to business access objects, for instance. Will ISD consider having a single page for add edit functionality instead of 2 pages? That's interesting. Not part of this, but yes, we're looking at that. We've been looking at that for a long time. I'm sure if you've tried it, you know that there are lots of complications, but yes, we are looking at that. It's sort of a trade-off. You know, it's different pages, but when the pages are simpler, they're easier to deal with. So do you make one very complicated page that does everything, or do you make a lot of little pages that do just the specific things you want? Well, it's sort of a trade-off, and we're looking at that all the time. Could you click on the posting with 2 records? Okay. Let's see. Sure. I'm sure this is what you mean. We looked at this one. Let's see. The green. What is that? This is Public Works, I think. It looks like, yes, Public Works. So if we go to Public Works, now we get Public Works, and we get the 2 job openings for Public Works, Civil Engineer and File Clerk. And when using charts, I noticed that while the charts tend to render on my development server, but when the application is deployed to the production server, I get an error message calling for the page which has the chart, unable to access page. That can often happen. Remember, this uses Microsoft Charting. I don't know what framework you're using. Microsoft Charting wasn't available in I think in the 3.5 framework. You had to actually install it separately, so you might look at that. That's the most common reason that I know of, that all of a sudden on your development, on your real server, which is not configured the same as the server you're developing on. Remember, it has to have the various parts. That brings me to another favorite subject of mine, which is we just try and make this very seamless, so you think, oh, well, I can just upgrade things. Well, remember, Designer is a single program that interfaces with lots and lots of other pieces, other programs, other pieces of software, such as charting, an excellent example. And if you get the two out of sync, which can happen when you upgrade one and not the other, you all of a sudden end up with strange problems. So when that happens, remember to look for what I call software rot, which is where you've upgraded one piece of software and not another, and all of a sudden you've got things incompatible. Please contact your system administrator. Is there something that needs to be done differently when deploying to production? Yes, we talked about that. Could we customize the create where for the chart like we do with table? Yes, you can, Mohammed. Let me see if, well, let's just, in code customization, it'll take a minute. We have lots of time. We're a little early today. So if we go to our chart here, let's go look in Visual Studio. And I think what I wanted to do was, let's go back to my application for just a minute. I want to get this label here, so easiest way to find things in Visual Studio is just look for the labels. Okay. See where that shows up. Not here. Was not found, job count 3, okay. Okay, not found there. That's not in the controls, so. Happenings. And here we have set job openings chart. Here's the base function. We'll go to definition. And here you have the setting of the chart and all of the things you can customize. You customize charts just like you customize anything else in Iron Speed Designer. Please explain when, how, why properties are or are not available. I assume you're referring to the fact that I had to put it inside a panel, a data panel, in order to make the property show up. That was or something that happened when we upgraded to 12.02 or 12.0, somewhere in there. When we moved the properties around, we found out that some were not appearing. They actually didn't appear unless you put them inside of properties. That's a temporary glitch. We hope to have it fixed soon. And it will be in a later version, but for right now, we have to deal with what we have. And so if you find that some things are missing when you put a control in one place, then try putting the control inside a record panel. If you're putting it at the page level, try putting it inside a record or table panel and see if you get the results you want. That's the best I can explain it. It has to do with where the underlying software is looking for the information that it has, and when it's at the page level, it's not seeing some of the things it should. Could you address the ability to link or use SSRS, SQL Server Reporting System, I think, reports as part of an Iron Speed application? Well, I haven't used SSRS, but know many people who have, and it prepares, I believe, things you can use in your page. I don't know exactly how it would link, but it either can be used as a control when you have SSRS installed, or it will prepare its own pages. If it prepares its own pages, then that's simply a matter of linking to those pages. That's the way that I go about looking at linking it. Let's talk a bit about construction of analytics table and folder. Okay. Actually, there is no analytics table, Chris. I do this all the time. We often confuse the fact that we have tables and records and things in the database. But in our application, what we have is pages and fields and pages and controls. When the sample application was prepared, there was no analytics folder. We just prepared an analytics folder here, added it to the Application Explorer, and then put the analytics page inside it. The analytics page isn't based on any data. It's only based on for the page itself. It contains the data for the several charts it uses. And so we added a folder, then added a page inside. You can add a folder anytime you want. New, I think we got to have folder down here, don't we? Or actually, yeah, you don't have to add it here. I don't know if we have the way to add it here, but if I add it, go to my application, add in the folder, it'll show up. And then add a page inside it. When we go to new, and then we had, of course, all the different types of pages we could have added. And that's basically how we created it. Now, when you do things like that, you'll notice that in the application, I also had to take time to configure the menu, because if we just add a page in, that's fine, but it won't be in the menu unless I add it there. But you saw how easy it is to add something into the menu. Okay. I see everybody's waking up. I think we didn't finish too early because we're going to have plenty of time to talk about questions. What about adding a second line to a graph chart? So if we were to, actually, I don't believe our charts allow for a second, but that's for a second index. Let me see. Why don't we go looking at it? The way to find this out for sure, Dennis, the same way I'm going to look at here. I don't want to be in Visual Studio. I want to be here. Let's just go to, since I'm creating charts on this page, let's go to my charts. Go to my, pick anything. And I don't believe we'll be able to configure a second index. Job positions, don't consider this data to be meaningful. We'll just, that was obviously a bad choice. Okay, something like that. But you notice, use time interval, use actual value. There's no place here for a second Y line, X-axis line. So no, we don't have an ability to have dual lines on the page, not that I know of. And actually, I haven't investigated the charts that this is based on. Remember, this is based on Microsoft Charting. If Microsoft Charting allows you to do that, then the place to look for doing it would be in the code customization where I showed you earlier. Can you give an example of how to format a report in PDF? Don't think I really have the answer for that one, because the PDF reports, although I guess we should look at a PDF report. And how would we go about, who has a PDF report? Let me find somebody who has a PDF report. In our job openings, in the actions, we have a PDF. We have a PDF report available on our job openings. On our job openings, on our group by job openings page. So then you'd find the page to group by job openings. And in group by job openings, why don't we just go look at the code for that? Actually, first I want to find my panels, my actions. Here's my PDF button. My PDF button, let's find the thing that, does the PDF button. And why don't we just look everywhere, see how many PDF buttons we have in our application. Lots of PDF buttons to choose from. You can go to one of them. Here is set the PDF button, set PDF button. Let's just take a look. In our group by applications, okay, so we'll look at the PDF report for the applications. Set PDF button doesn't do anything extra. Overridable report, specific file name equals. Here we go. And here in PDF button click, when you click the PDF button, it prepares the report. And here's a start where you'll start to look at customizing your PDF report. And of course, it uses a control file also, I believe, which you can customize. But here's where you start to look for customizing your PDF report. You have to share the IIS folder for the chart image. Dennis, they had that question earlier about the chart that wouldn't work on his server, and Dennis says you have to share the IIS folder for the chart image, which means it may not have been able to get at the chart image. You have to thank you, Deepak. Same. How do you create an analytics folder in Designer? It's not just an analytics folder. It's any folder. And what I looked here was, do I want a new, and I have an admin page, blank page, email. These are all pages. I think we left folder out of here, but that doesn't bother me because, remember, this is our application. Here's my application in my training folder and training. This is the application we're working on, job application. So if I want to create an analytics folder here, I'll just create an analytics 2. And refresh this. Whoops. Build. Wait a minute. File. Close application. Come on, guys. Where is my? Never refresh anything, so it should just refresh. Wrong one. Help. And
Brian says view/.
View, yes, view. Where is view? Thank you, Brian.
And Ellie says
thanks. I'm glad you guys are watching out for me because here we go. And then your folder shows up. I mean, it's really that simple. So you create any folders you want. It's so basic we didn't even put it in the right-click menu. You just put any folder you want in your application. It'll show up. Remember that in View also, when you're looking at the Application Explorer toolbox, always show generating, enable line numbers, database, fields, files. Here's what I was looking for. Looking at files, the default is safe source files only. Those are files it's okay for you to modify. If you want to see all the source files in your application, including ones that might be very questionable for you to modify, unless you really know what you're doing, well, go ahead, just turn it on. Can you dynamically tie two charts together? I don't see why not. If it made sense to link to one chart from another, you would have to put it on a page, though. Remember, because you can't link to a chart. You can link to a chart on a page. So if you put the two charts on separate pages, companion pages, and you could have them linked to one another in one of the links. Remember, we had all those links we could look at in the chart we were looking here, when we actually go down to the panel and we look at our chart, we have all these links. Here's the redirect link for the URL legend, the redirect link for the pie. So those are all configurable, and so they can go other places. It would be using the native .NET reporting control. Yes. I think, Clint, you meant to answer a question there, and I'm not sure which one that exactly refers to, but Clint told me it would be using the native .NET reporting control. Will you see built-in record-level reporting in future versions? Alan, I'm not sure that built-in reporting is something that we're focusing on. There's so many other ways that the technology is changing, and mobile is one of the heaviest, so we're, of course, spending a reasonable amount of time on mobile. But for reporting, I think we're going to continue to work with third-party reporting packages. How we could use filters like dates with charts. Easy enough, I think, because, of course, the charts don't have their own filters, but they have filters by the fact that you can, when configuring a chart, when you're using a date field, let's just drop in a chart. I don't have an example prepared, so we're going to just say we took the sum of, sum's not good, we better do counts. Let's do employment history. Okay, departments, positions. Let's try employment history. And we're going to just pick a line chart. Employment history selected. Now we want to put a date in here. Employment history by positions, selected field. Wrong one. That was not the right one. I want one that has departments, employment history, education. Select attended from. So let's put in some dates. Now, once you have a date field you're using in your chart, you get to select whether you're using absolute, percentage, charting. I would swear that this gave me, I might have done it backwards, that I had the option of using date ranges, and I do. I know that I'm just using the wrong thing to, here's the use label settings. I can use the actual value, or I can use a time interval, and I can take my time interval. I can take quarters, months, weeks, and how many periods to show, and so you can look at the data that way. For filtering it, I would look at filtering possibly the data source itself, and the data source itself, let's go out of here. The data source for any chart is, of course, in the queries section. Here, this is the data source. If we, what do I have? Something opening? Oh, yes, I do, don't I? It, for some reason, had trouble getting at the file, but that's okay. We have our data source here, and then we can filter it using where clauses. We can add any where clauses we'd like. And that's the kind of filtering that's available to you with the charts. Could you show the redirect URL pie property you edited? Okay. We're looking at the chart. Of course, this is the one inside that actually isn't shown. Remember, I hid it, but it has these properties. And the typical redirect property is a local URL link. All you do is select any of the actions you want. This is in general in a property sheet. You select it, then you click the edit button and get its contents. It was basically a URL that goes to the show openings table page, and then with an argument. Now, the default argument was the name and the name from the record. But of course, we changed that to department ID and the department ID from the data source. Hope that's what you wanted to look at. Could you show the redirect URL? Oh, yes, I did that. Let's see, show products table. What purpose this file serves? Okay, we've got localhost site 2 projects, show projects table, PDF button report. Change it. That's a very good question. He asked about, let me see. We asked about these button reports, and if we had show job openings. I'm looking at all the reports. Show job opening, group by job. I don't know if there's over here. Let's see if we can. There is PDF button report. So, contains the button-specific settings for the PDF report. Okay, then this is available. These are settings for the PDF report itself. Let's see. And I gather you can add things in here that will allow you to configure your PDF report. Where the instructions are for using this, aside from what's in the file, that I don't know, and so that I do a little investigation. If it's something that you need some more details on, try a quick support case. I don't have the answer for exactly what this does. I haven't used this file. I haven't had the occasion to, but it looks like it's instructions for the report itself, and we can find you an answer if you'll put in a support case. It would be beneficial to find a way to integrate SQL Server reports into ISD. Ellie, I think you're probably right. I don't know what. I know it's at least on our radar. I don't know where it is in the stack. Put that one aside and talk about that with some people later. Can you please say more about share IIS folder on production server? I'm assuming this was in reference to charts not displaying on the production server. Yes, it was, and I don't know specifically what the earlier comment referred to. I thought the chart uses, I believe, a temporary folder when it displays. And so let me see if we have a chart. Well, let's just go to our application ourselves. Here's our application. I don't want analytics 2, I want analytics. Because there is no chart folder here, and the internal functionings of the chart control are not something I look at regularly, and so I don't have all the details, but we do have a temp folder, and the temp folder contains various, from time to time, pages, and one of the things people have had trouble with is the temp folder not being available. That is a possibility, in which case you would simply make sure that its security properties allowed access to IIS. This is where we often encounter problems with databases and possibly with the chart. So that's one thing I can think of. I don't see any other place where a specific chart picture shows up, so I'd have to actually see what mechanism is going on underneath there. I don't know it right now. Can you control a chart or graph from a drop-down? Now that's interesting. Can you put a drop-down list control in order to select in a chart or graph? I'm not exactly sure, but I could easily conceive of the fact that you have a chart, and it's configured some way with what I showed you earlier about using a chart. You could put a drop-down to select values above the chart or next to the chart and select the value and then have the configuration of the chart in the code customization. Well, remember that I showed you where you can customize values for your chart. Then use that, and so the chart would use the values in the drop-down. Can you add a folder inside ISD? I have always gone to Visual Studio and come back. No, Jim, that's the same question we talked about a little earlier. I hope you caught the answer. We didn't have any facility inside Iron Speed Designer that I'm aware of to add a folder. I wanted to add a folder here, new folder at this level. There aren't any add folders. But so then the easiest thing is, rather than worry about putting it inside of Designer, just go outside and add a folder. What purpose? The PDF button reports, remember we talked about these, the Word file and the file here. Now the Word file, that's a different question. It's the same, but it's the same thing. It's a configuration file for our Word report. What purpose are these two? Yes. Okay. Well, it's a good thing I did finish a little early because we're already over time, but that's okay. We're going to answer all the questions. They're actually getting down to the bottom unless you guys have got anything more. It would be beneficial to find a way to integrate. Yes. That's the question I was saving. Sorry, Ellie. Got that in a separate pile. Took it up again. It's quite easy to add a drop-down. It is quite easy to add a drop-down related or unrelated to chart and reference the chart in the where clause. Dennis was answering the question, I believe, earlier question of could you influence the chart by the drop-down list, and yes, he says add a chart, related or unrelated chart, reference the chart in the where clause. And one more. Okay, yes, this is last call. Get your questions in now, or because we'll be wrapping up very soon. Can you show the pie chart redirect URL again? Okay, let's just take a look. And it's not just the pie chart's a good example, but in my application I have my here my chart. Where I could have other redirect URLs. Actually, and here I have the two redirect URLs. This one I've reconfigured. You'll notice it has department in it. This one I hadn't reconfigured yet, so it was the original. It contained the value we're looking at, supposedly. Supposedly the value we're looking at, well, no, it doesn't contain the value. It's the URL that's used to redirect in the chart itself. And the URL, therefore, has to be a link to some page in the application, followed by, almost always followed by an argument. You could just go to a page if you didn't care about limiting anything on the page and just want to see that page, then all you need is this part of the URL. But if we want to pass an argument, then we have to have the page accept the argument, which remember I did by editing the data source for the job openings table so that it accepted the department ID URL, and you have to give it that URL. I think that's all there is to explain. If there's a particular other question, let me know. When a PDF button is added to a page, it doesn't add the PDF button control in the folder list under the page name. How do we add it manually? The PDF button control, I assume you mean this record right here. Well, when a PDF button is added to a page, well, I'm not sure. One of the things what comes to mind, I don't know. I've never tried this, but if you I think what you're telling me is that when I go ahead and drop in a PDF button, so if I go to my, where is my application? What am I looking at here? Let's close this down. Go look at a page. If I look at my toolbox, and in my headers, forms, fields, labels, sums, filters, and sorts buttons, yeah. How do you add it manually? So yeah, we go to not buttons but ASPX. Do I have a PDF button? I didn't think we had a specific PDF button, although we might have one available in buttons. If we have a specific PDF button, if you find one here, you drop it in, and for some reason it doesn't show up this PDF report, then what I would try is simply make one, copy one from another place, and then look and see what's in that button report and where it's referenced in the code. Remember, there you'll have to go looking at the code, see where it references that particular file. That's all I can think of. Please show the redirect pie chart URL you modified. Show the redirect. Now, okay. I see. Yeah, I showed you, Jared, you're right. I showed you the one that, whoops, chart. I showed you this one, and you know, let's, can I see them side by side? Let's see. I'll do this quickly here. Let's just copy this guy and then go cancel this. And so here's the other one that hasn't been modified. Okay, now, want to see them side by side? Let's just put them. Here's the one that that was not modified. This is the default one that came out of the program. What I did to modify was simply change the URL, where what it's using for the URL argument. It's using the department ID, and instead of the name field, and then getting that department ID, the actual value from the data source. And so that's basically what we did. And thank you. I think we're ready to wrap it up. I want to thank you all for attending. Thank you especially for the questions. Even though you stumped me on a few, it's always good to know what I don't know. Thanks very much for attending, and I hope you got what you need out of this, and we'll see you again at another time. Remember, the crash course is every Friday, and lots of other webinars and things scheduled. Check our website. Thanks very much. Have a good day.